microphone is on. Woohoo! Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Westside Congregation in Rio Rancho. I'm really glad you're joining us here this morning, and I'm really sorry that it's so chilly for most of you who probably don't like that. I personally think it's balmy. However, I know that I'm probably a minority of one. So, we are really glad that you are here, whether you're here in the sanctuary and a bit nippy around the edges. Oh, and I should tell you, if you don't already know it, there are blankets, and they are here for the express purpose of wrapping up when you're chilly. There's one behind Jay, yep, right there, that is really soft. You might end up having a nap if you're wrapped up in that one. And there are still a couple more under that, I forget what you call that desk in the back.
Podium.
The podium, whatever. But there are a couple more under there, so if you get nippy, you can cozy up with your neighbors, you can get an additional blanket, do whatever you need to do to be comfortable and stay reasonably warm. And hopefully by the time we are finished in here, well, A, it'll be really toasty in here between systemic heat and the space heaters, and the social hall will also have warmed up from what it was. And we will figure out whatever the kinks are and try to get those fixed during the coming week. So, having said that, and welcome to those of you online who I hope are in a toasty place whenever and wherever you're viewing this later on. I am the Reverend Dr. Nancy Hitt. I'm the consulting minister for this congregation, and joining me today will be both Carol Eaglehart and I hope some of you at various points during the service. Our topic today is building community. So there will be opportunities to volunteer to participate in various activities throughout our service. The service is founded on Principle 1, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and Principle 5, the right of conscience and the use of democratic process within our congregations and within society at large. We will also be receiving 2 new members into our congregation today. So, put all of this together and expect some new insights into being a special community. And as was mentioned in our newsletter, we will be referencing the movie Sister Act later on. The movie is a good example of an intentional community. It doesn't get much more intentional than joining a convent that struggles to meet its common goals while honoring the individuality of its members. As you likely know, it's a comedy, which also makes it easy to explore and use as an example. So, that said, prepare for an unusual use of the movie later on. Today, we offer our gratitude to Bram and Roxy Cast-Hecht, who are our greeters and who also made an emergency run to Walgreens to obtain AAA batteries, which the thermostat requires, when we only had AA's on hand. So thank you so much for that. To Dana Sanford, our sound master, and to Steve Quayani, our videographer and master of the circuit breaker. That was the other mystery of the morning, and Steve solved that. If you are visiting us today for the first time, we welcome you. We are glad that you have found either our sanctuary here or our website. If you have any questions or comments, please use the contact information either on the back of your bulletin or on our website to connect with me. We would like to get to know you better. Here are the announcements for today. Our programming team meets today in the green room at 12:30, which actually we're going to slide into the conference room because that room has heat, the green room does not. If you have ideas for future services, please come to the meeting and share them with us. And if you share your ideas with us, it does not mean that you have to leave the service. It just means that you have helped contribute to the planning of our program. Next Sunday morning, Reverend Carol will lead us in a celebration of the winter solstice. At 6 p.m. next Sunday evening, CUPS will hold a potluck event. The potluck begins at 6 p.m. in the social hall. The ritual begins at 7 p.m. If you have questions, ask for a carol. And on Christmas Eve, our service will be here in the sanctuary at 6 p.m. If you would like to sing with our special Christmas choir, please be here at, what time? 5. Please be here at 5 to rehearse. The service will include carols, poetry, and the story of Christmas. Now, if you're one of those people who either likes or just plain needs to really plan ahead, mark your brand new, wherever you have it, 2022 calendar for the first day of the new year. You will see these around our building, and I know you probably can't read it from where you're seated, so let me tell you that we will be holding a New Year's potluck bonfire on New Year's Day. Teens, and actually we've drafted a few, it's exciting, yes, well, and I don't think we're going to make you be the only one chopping up wood, are we? You, okay.
No,
I don't think so. But teens will be here at 2 to help prepare and set up. And for the rest of us, the fires will start at 4:30. Sunset on New Year's Day is scheduled for 5:06 p.m. So our intention is to have bonfires in a variety of fire pit containers, which if you have one at home that's portable and would like to bring it, along with a chair, fire extinguisher, mask, blanket, and potluck dish. I will be making soup. Remember that turkey we had at Thanksgiving? Yeah, well, I got like 6 quarts of broth from the turkey, so we'll be having soup. And we will be toasting to our hopes, burning our sorrows and worries. And there is a number here for Steve as a contact person if you have questions, etc. So you can mark your calendar with that. And lastly, I want to remind us that next Sunday is our Potluck Town Hall meeting. And we do have some very important items to discuss. I expect to be sending you at least a partial agenda with our midweek newsletter. So please do make every effort to attend if you can. Is there anything else that needs to be brought to our attention? Yes, Jen?
I would like to be reminded what time to come to practice singing on the 26th.
Oh.
1 hour before.
1 hour before.
And, yes, an hour before, so that would make it 10.
Thank you.
Okay. And I do, yes, Steve?
I would like to thank Carol, Eric, Melinda, and Nancy for decorating yesterday. Thank you.
And you?
And myself.
I do have one other announcement. This comes from Sherry Nofke, who is not here because she has a rather unique engagement today. Sherry is part of a ukulele ensemble of some sort. I don't know the details beyond that, but they are playing today at the Rio Rancho Senior Center at 1 p.m. So if you are of a mind to check out ukulele music this afternoon, the Senior Center on Meadowlark is offering that concert. All right, then I think we're good with announcements. Oh, and the last very important one today, we have cake to go with our coffee because we have new members coming into membership, and you just have to have a party when we're doing that. So I invite you now, well, 2 things. I invite someone who feels moved to be willing to come up and light our chalice while we do our chalice lighting. Jay? Okay. And if all of us, as we are able, would stand and join me in the words. Step by step, hand by hand, brick by brick, our chalice flame illuminates the building of our community. May it be a place of self-awareness, intentionality, and transparency, to the end that we are connected to one another in healthy bonds of compassion and commitment. Shalom and blessed be. If you would join me, please, in affirming our aspirations. Life is a gift. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. In the light of truth
and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Shalom.
And if you would open your hymnal now to number 40, The Morning Hangs a Signal. For those of you who read music, the melody's at 343, and Carol will lead us in this.
Yes, we've never sung these words before, but the tune is The Day of Light and Gladness.
The morning hangs a signal upon the mountain crest, while all the sleeping valleys in silent darkness rest. From peak to peak it flashes, it lasts along the sky, till the glory of the sunlight on all the land shall lie.
Okay, that's the tune, all right? I don't really hear anybody singing, so let's try it on the second verse.
We're singing.
Above the generations, the lonely prophets rise, while truth flares as the day star within their glowing eyes, and other eyes beholding are kindled from that flame, and dawn becomes the morning when prophets love proclaim. A soul has lifted moments above the drift of days, when life's great meaning breaketh in sunrise on our ways. Behold the radiant token of faith above all fear, that shall release its splendor, that morning shall appear.
Boy, you really belted it out.
Thank you. Please do be seated. I invite you now to settle in as much comfort as you can achieve for a moment for centering. Sit back in your pew or wherever you may be at home. Relax. Let your mind go blank. Uncross your ankles, your knees, your wrists. Close your eyes if you are comfortable doing so, or choose a focal point. Breathe deeply and fully. Inhaling, exhaling. Let yourself sink into the safety of the community in this room. Breathing in and breathing out. Know that even as your experience is unique to you, so is theirs to them. Together, we are all very different. Together, we are all very much the same. Relax into your breath. Relax into the love, the acceptance, and affirmation of this community. Let your mind's eye picture it as an amazing jigsaw puzzle. Every person unique, every person needed, every person with their own special place in our design. Note that the design keeps changing. It is flexible. You can change it yourself, or wait to see what others do. Observe the kaleidoscope of your community as it engages, forming and reforming for different purposes. Just let the images flow. Tuck your observations into your memory and return your focus to yourself and to your breath. Breathing in and out. Beginning to return your focus to the here and now. And when you are ready, open your eyes. Shalom. Now I am aware that this is not in your bulletin, but believe me, I did not forget joys and concerns. Each week, we celebrate our joys and support each other in our difficulties, lighting a candle for each one. If you are joining us online, you may light your candle at any time or wait until we light our last candle here to speak what is in your heart aloud. So as we begin, I have a very special concern on behalf of Bram. Her much-loved nephew, Anthony, has died this past week. I have the best story ever that Bram shared with me and told me I could share with you. Bram taught 3-year-old, so picture like 80 is size. 3-year-old Ant, short for Anthony, how to play a bass guitar. And he actually learned. He picked it up, and he was a wonderful musician who also, note, loved his pets dearly. That's an extremely important thing here. Bram says that she knows, and she sent this to me via email, and it's in all caps, that he is with his family and pets now. It's still a phenomenal loss, but I love the fact that Bram taught her 3-year-old nephew to play a bass guitar. Seriously. So we light a special candle in honor of his life. Okay, and Jamie has a joy that I can't exactly share it concretely, but I appreciate the heck out of the sentiment. She wore a thermal t-shirt today. So for those of you who dressed preparing for some kind of cold and expected to find it outside, ta-da! But it's warm, yes? Are you warm enough now? Comfortable? Good, I'm really glad. Because I'm aware of heat around my face, but that doesn't always mean anything to the rest of the world. However, do we have other joys and concerns that I, yes, okay.
Thank you for I have 2 different things. Is the mic on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. One I haven't been willing to share with too many people, but I am now because I'm finally getting some help. As you know, the pandemic has caused many people to have some emotional situations happen in their lives. And I'm one of them. Came out of it with panic and anxiety attacks, which, anyway, I finally found help. I've been looking for it for literally the past year. Wow. And I'm very excited. So finally willing to share that. And then a real joy, of course, I'm going to Pennsylvania for Christmas.
All right.
Okay, to be with my son, his wife, and my grandsons, and I'll be gone 3 weeks. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody, and Happy New Year. I'll see you next year.
Happy holidays.
I think I share a concern with a lot of people about the recent tornadoes that went through the Quad States and caused so much damage.
Anyone or anything else? Well, I know Laurel would appreciate it if we lit a candle. I think it should be for joy. She should currently be about to be airborne on her Christmas vacation, and I don't want to have to light a candle of concern for that. So let's go with joy that she has a good and safe trip. Anyone or anything else? Then let's light one last candle for all that we still hold in the privacy of our own hearts and minds.
Yeah, that's nice.
And now I invite Graham to come and share. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, I do have for the red candle. We light this red candle in support of the victims of racial violence. May it remind us to be ever vigilant and to work to repair the wounds of oppression and racism in all of their forms. Shalom. Now we invite Graham to share our animal ministry moment with us.
There's 2 cat facts I wanted to share with you. A cat's brain is biologically more similar to a human brain than it is to a dog's. Cats and humans have very similar regions in the brain responsible for emotions. Now this one I didn't know. Unlike humans, cats can survive by drinking seawater because their kidneys are able to filter out the salt without becoming fatally damaged.
Oh, be darned.
Yeah, that was something. Now this little kitty says, unbridled love. I knead your chest with my sharp claws to show you my affection. I bite your arm and don't let go to show your adoration. I walk across your throat at night because I want to say hello. I leap from high upon your crotch because I miss you so. I trip you when you walk down the stairs so you know I'm always near.
Oh, yeah.
I sit on your head and block all your air, so my absence you need not fear. I show you my love in so many ways, my devotion runneth over. So I don't know why when I approach, you duck and run for cover.
Thank you. Now, Carol is going to do our Moment for All Ages, which you will see in your program is titled, Get Up Everybody and Sing. That's a hint.
Are we getting up?
Yes.
Okay, we're getting up. I guess we're getting up. Okay. She wants us to do a big chord, sing a chord together. Are we up for a chord? Okay, here's the first note in the chord. And sing ah. All right. Hey, not bad. Considering masks and everything. Okay, the second note. Now some people want to do the first note. Okay, remember the ah. Okay, here we go. A little bit shaky there, but I think we're going to get it. Okay, here's the third note. It's getting higher, so those of you on the low end might want to stick with that first. Okay, so here's the third one. Okay, so we want to get them all together. Okay, now who's ready?
One more time.
Okay. Okay, now who's ready for a high one? Anybody ready for a high? Or an octave lower. Okay, now pick one. Here we go, all together. Beautiful. Thank you. You can be seated.
Anybody like to volunteer to do our little intro for our gifts of love and commitment?
Okay, I will.
Okay.
As long as it's written.
It's written, absolutely. I don't, oh no, I would never ask you to make it up. There's a script.
Okay, the script's right there. Okay,
Right
good.
there. Those are your lines,
Okay.
and I'm going to go get that basket and then just stand right down there, and when you're done, you can escape.
Okay, thank you. One of the joys of being part of a community is the opportunity to be yourself in a whole new way, to lead, to follow, to contribute, to receive. We celebrate each person and our collective goals and experiences each week as we take a moment to be thankful for the financial contributions that underwrite all of this. To everyone, thank you for your gifts of love and commitment.
And we're going to sing this together. Yes.
Yes.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Now, I'm going to give you just some really simple instructions. In a minute, I'm going to ask Dee and Lynn to come up and stand here with me and bring your hymnals with you. And if the rest of you would all open your hymnal to number 594, which is titled Principles and Purposes for All of Us. Dee Curry and Lynn Menifee are our new members, officially, formally, as of today. They clearly have been here for a little while. Oh, thank you. Just come right down here. And I'm going to ask Lynn and Dee to join me. You see that this is a responsive reading. And so we will begin with the boldface type, which of course I pulled my bookmark out and now have to find. Here we go. So Lynn and Dee and I will read the boldface type together. I'll join you folks in. Yeah. Yep, I got it. Thank you. And then I'm asking you as a congregation to respond with the italics. And then they will be signing the membership book, which is on the music stand in front of them. And after the service, in the interest of time, you can see that our loom is set up to your right over there. And I have ribbons and such down here. And both Lynn and Dee will be able to choose a ribbon and weave it into the loom on this occasion of their membership. And we will record that in the book too.
Wow.
So if you'd all stand as you are able. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
We believe that each and every person is important.
We affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations.
We believe that all people should be treated fairly.
We affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth.
We believe that our churches are places where all people are accepted and where we keep on learning together.
We affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning.
We believe that each person must be free to search for what is true and right in life.
We affirm and promote the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process.
We believe that all people should have a voice and a vote about the things which concern them.
we affirm and promote the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all.
We believe that we should work for a peaceful, fair, and free world.
We affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part.
We believe that we should care for our planet Earth.
If you two would stay right there. Thank you. You may be seated. Lynn, if you would sign your name and the date, and then Dee do the same. And we do have several board members here, so I'm going to invite Dave and Steve and Jay to simply come extend the right-handed fellowship, as the very archaic expression goes, and welcome Dee and Lynn into our congregation. Oh, today's the 12th. I know that because it's a Sunday and I tell time by Sundays, for the rather obvious reason. And just as a point of information for the rest of you, Lynn and Dee joined me for several hours of class to explore what it means to be UU, to be part of this congregation, etc. And they have both been active in a number of ways in the church since we've reopened after the pandemic. Thank you, ladies both. You're free to sit down and after All right, so switching gears here. First off, if you're getting actually warm, you can shut off the space heaters that are near you. Because, believe it or not, they do take power and we have to pay for that, so if you don't need it. Well, you're going to see signs around the building reminding you to close some of the adjoining, the doors that go from one large space to another, because if they're left open, we pay a whole lot more in heat because of the air currents and the this and the that in the building. So we're on our annual winter, close that door behind you, sort of campaign for just that reason. So this past fall, I gave my customary State of the UU sermon sometime in October, I believe. I try each year to share an overview of how we're doing at being us. A small Unitarian Universalist congregation on a shoestring budget with big hopes and deep passions. It's part of my job as your minister to monitor to and to respond to the needs of both each individual person and the congregation as a whole. If we were a much larger group, I would share those impressions with whoever the leadership was, and we'd be planning programs and interventions from there. Pre-pandemic, we were at about 35 people attending regularly. Post-pandemic lockdown, and you know, I really want to be able to say post-pandemic, but in all honesty, I just can't. But post-pandemic lockdown, we are averaging out at about 25, which I'm sure you're all sitting there looking around trying to count and see how many are here this morning, but it's okay. 25 puts us smack dab in the middle of the statistics on church attendance nationwide post-lockdown. And we are in the exact same place that everyone else is. Attendance is down 29.9%. I mention this specifically because the size of our congregation makes a big difference in how we can do things. When you're one of 25 people, you expect to know everyone by their first name and to have them know yours. You expect to know who is in charge of what and how to have them get in touch with you if they need to, for you to access them if you need to. You expect to be able to ask a question about anything that's going on, from what's happening in social justice to who's going to weed the labyrinth to how we're going to pay attention to Memorial Day, and have those questions answered. You expect to be able to participate in pretty much anything you want or need to, with the exception of serious pastoral care issues that are actually none of your business. Because if there are only 25 of us, pretty much everything is everyone's business and everyone's responsibility, except for those personal care issues. If we had 50 people, there would be a little wiggle room on that. And by the time we got to 80 to 100 people, the dynamics would change dramatically. At 80 to 100 people, you should expect to have a full-time minister, a balanced budget with line items for repairs and future building projects, and I wrote this before the issues this morning. You would expect to have a budget with a children's RE program and music staff and equipment if we had that number of people. And that's actually a conservative picture of what one would expect in a congregation of that size. But at 25 and even up to 50 people, we are nowhere near that. Every single person matters a whole lot. What we say and do with each other has a huge impact on us, both individually and as a group. So when someone comes and shares a difficulty with me, I can't stand here and talk about it. I haven't, and I won't. I want you to be really clear on that, because I know that if I were to do that, we are so small that there would be no confidentiality whether I named names or not. There's nowhere to hide in a crowd this small. That makes for wonderfully close connections sometimes, but it can also be uncomfortable. No one ever wants to feel exposed when they're in distress. So if someone, or two, or three, feel rejected and hurt, something needs to be done. But that something can never be exposing them in their distress. This is where Sister Act comes in. I know you've been waiting. What groups like us need is a story that offers us the opportunity to explore the issues that are at work in our own community. A story allows each of us to enter into it in whatever way we need to without exposing ourselves or anyone else. A story gives us the best of two worlds when it comes to groups. I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of creating a safe space for people to share their thoughts and feelings. More recently, we've had a few conversations here about also creating a brave space, a space in which to take risks in order to learn something important. A healthy congregation needs to be both safe and brave. If it doesn't feel emotionally safe here, no one will come. And if we aren't invested in being brave enough to grow, we will be bored to tears, and no one will come. A story that gives us characters to identify with, a plot to pursue, and maybe even a theme or a moral to explore. A story gives us a vehicle for creating both safe and brave space, often at the same time. Stories give us examples to try on for size. They help us rehearse our feelings, imagine new experiences, all from the safety of the story. We don't have to wing it in real life if we have good stories to help us lay the groundwork. So, Sister Act, I really am getting there. Believe me, I am as surprised as you probably are that I'm about to discuss a story about nuns and their choir mistress, a woman who turns out to be in witness protection after witnessing a cold-blooded murder by her married lover's henchman in the Las Vegas hotel that she worked in as a showgirl. So, let me tell you how I see the story of Sister Act as offering us the opportunities we need to examine our own dynamics, both group and individual. First, the convent, as I mentioned before, is an intentional community. You have to really want to be there. As Whoopi Goldberg's character, Sister Mary Clarence, said when asked where she was when she got the call to be a nun, she responds, "I was in Vegas, and you don't know how hard it can be to get a call until you've gotten one in Las Vegas." A convent is a very committed community. And then, within the convent, much of the story takes place within the choir, a small group within a small convent. The nuns in the choir not only share the same values as the rest of the nuns to live their lives to the glory of God, to help people, the choir nuns want to make beautiful music to aid in that life. But here's the problem. They are awful. They are absolutely god-awful. It is physically painful to listen to them. They are, in fact, so bad, it's almost funny. And I am betting that the actresses playing those parts had to practice harder to be that bad than they ever did to sing it right. So here we have a small, I didn't take a head count on screen, but they're probably about 25 people, nuns, all of whom want the same things. They're committed to working for the same goals. Kind of like we are. Beginning to get the analogy here? Just a little bit. The biggest problem for the choir is balancing the gifts and talents of the individuals with the music the group is trying to make together. Because there are powerful singers in this choir, as well as one young novice who mouths the words, but literally makes no sound. She has no voice at all. Enter Sister Mary Clarence, aka Whoopi Goldberg, the Vegas showgirl who tells Reverend Mother that she, quotes, wants to get some butts in the pews. Sister Mary Clarence has noticed that people like casinos and theaters, but they don't like church because it's boring. Mary Clarence is not boring. She's bored in the convent and in constant trouble in the beginning, but she finds a way to help the choir. The story of how she and the choir create a beautiful music program that balances the individuals within the group is the story that we need to engage with. Because this isn't just the story of how the Vegas showgirl fixes the nuns, proving that they are old-fashioned and out of style. This is the story of how the showgirl and the nuns work together to create a whole new music. First, Sister Mary Clarence enters the choir rehearsal very slowly. She has no intention of taking over. Really, what she just wants is to hide out and not get into trouble, and she says so multiple times. But the choir nuns already know that they are in trouble. They've heard themselves sing. So when the novice, Mary Robert, all these Mary double names, it's a thing. So when Sister, or she's not a sister, this is the novice. So when Mary Robert shares the information that Sister Mary Clarence has a musical background, they're really excited at the thought of finding a new way to succeed. They ask her, has she been a choir mistress before? And the answer from the showgirl, masquerading as a nun, is, well, she was sort of freelance. However, as excited as the nuns are in the choir at the prospect of this new way of doing things, new resource, whatever, there is the existing choir mistress. She's upset, and understandably so. She accuses Sister Mary Clarence of being a ringer, someone that Reverend Mother has sent to replace her. Now, the choir mistress is Sister Mary Lazarus. She's kind of appropriately named in some ways. Sister Mary Lazarus challenges Sister Mary Clarence to make 'em sing, sister. I think I want to see this. So slowly, Sister Mary Clarence accepts the baton and begins to sort them out. identifying various things about them as individuals. She points out that Mary Robert is just mouthing the words. Sister Mary Patrick is singing operatically at top volume, and they haven't yet sorted out who sings alto and soprano. Sister Mary Clarence commends each sister in a humorous way for their strengths, then suggests how they could use that to support the group, the choir. She tells Sister Mary Patrick that while everyone wants to get closer to God, singing in the rafters probably isn't going to do it. She needs to sing an octave lower than she has been and modify her volume. Sister Mary Robert, who isn't singing at all, but by the time Sister Mary Clarence is done with her, she belts out an A, and Sister Mary Clarence's response is, that's what we call an A with an attitude. In each of her interactions with the existing choir sisters, Sister Mary Clarence has a way of saying, here's this weird and crazy thing, but she does so with great good humor. And then she shows them what they can do on their own, if they're willing to tweak that so that it supports the rest of the group. It's really important that you notice that I just said she asks them if they're willing and able to do this. She does. She uses humor. She asks them if they will do this stuff, literally. She doesn't tell them to do anything. What she says is, can you do that for me? And then she waits for an answer, and that's key. Because a lot of times when we're in a group, we're just on a roll. Oh, we need to do this, this, and this. Can you do this? Can you do that? And we don't actually wait and give a person a chance to say, sure, or no thank you, and have either answer be okay. But she waits for an answer. Finally, everybody says yes, they can do, Sister Mary Patrick will stop singing in the rafters. The woman does have an amazing voice. And I believe Sister Mary Clarence's first words to her are, that is a powerful instrument you have. It would like blast through walls. So by the time she gets them sorted out and organized and does what Carol did with us this morning, asks them to sing one simple chord, which as a choir, one could expect them to do far more than us. But they sing a chord, and it's on key. It's perfect. It's beautiful. And they're so excited by singing a single chord that it's absolutely ludicrous, but they're just amazed that they can pull this off. They absolutely can't believe it. Now, all this time, Sister Mary Lazarus, their previous choir director, has been watching Sister Mary Clarence, the intruder here, reinvent her choir. What could get ugly very quickly as Whoopi, Sister Mary Clarence, accomplishes what Sister Mary Lazarus could not, doesn't. Because Sister Mary Clarence walks over and stands not in front of, but beside Sister Mary Lazarus. That's very important, to be beside someone as opposed to opposite. Opposite, oppositional, builds conflict right from the start, non-verbally. So you see Sister Mary Clarence lean down in, like, you know how you do that sideways thing when you're standing side by side but need to talk to somebody? And they have a conversation about whether or not the choir is really up to the task. Can they practice daily? It's going to be hard work. All of which makes sense because we've already heard Sister Mary Lazarus in a separate scene talk about how much she loved the hard work and discipline of her strict convent in Vancouver. Mary Lazarus had said, it was hell on earth. I loved it. Those were real nuns. No electricity, and we were barefoot. When you hear Sister Mary Clarence describe how getting the choir into shape is going to be just like that, we hear a wise woman using her insight about another person to help them with a difficult transition. The likelihood that Sister Mary Lazarus would have been hurt and angry and flown off in a huff was really high, until Sister Mary Clarence took what she knew mattered to Mary Lazarus and brought her back on board with it. It's a small conversation that accomplished a huge benefit. It reinstated Mary Lazarus and avoided hurt feelings. It also allowed Sister Mary Clarence to hide out and stay in her room and rest while the choir practiced what she taught them with Mary Lazarus. It was win-win all the way around. In this little vignette, we've got a small group of women, plus one in Whoopi Goldberg's character, working out how to recreate themselves into a healthy choir singing well together. First, they all had the same goal of making glorious music. Whoopi needed to fit in enough to not blow her cover and stay alive. That's a pretty powerful motivation. So they were all committed to making this work. Second, the choir admitted right off the bat to failure. No one was happy with how things were. Whoopi was bored to tears, and the choir knew they were awful. Thirdly, they were willing to change. Sister Mary Clarence changed her plans for sitting this one out when the opportunity to help by directing the choir opened up. And the choir was eager, almost to the point of rudeness in their willingness to do something new. Fourth, humor plays a huge role in this process. From telling Sister Opera there that that's not how to get to God, and that the one-note novice sang an A with an attitude, had all of the women in the choir laughing and smiling. They were actually hopeful because cultivating humor minimizes conflict. It's important to note that the humor was never at any one person's expense. Each joke was something that Sister Mary Clarence had included herself in. When she speaks to Mary Patrick, the one of the operatic range and power, she says, "We all want to be closer to God." And all the nuns are nodding their heads. So this is a conversation that's bigger than just herself and this one other nun. Fifth, there is a lot of lateral communication among the sisters. Some of it's physical, like Whoopi's character standing beside Mary Lazarus to reinforce their partnership. Part of it is the words that she chooses, not singling out anyone for negative judgment, and putting the emphasis on how they could help the whole choir. She didn't judge, she offered constructive alternatives and then asked if that was okay with them and waited for an answer. Sixth, in making their music work, Mary Clarence affirmed them all. If you had a chance to watch the movie recently, I sent a link, it didn't always work, I'm sorry, whatever. But if you did have a chance to check the video out online or whatever, when Sister Mary Clarence is conducting the choir and she's facing them and they're actually singing, she smiles at them, she tells them to smile, she winks at them. She does all kinds of little hand signs and nodding her head and cueing. I mean, part of it is the direction of the music, but part of it is directing the experience for them so that every single one of them knows that she's paying attention and that they're connected and that this is a happy occasion that they should feel good about. She does everything she can to facilitate that. They know in the end that they are all partners in this project. No one is left out. So having figured out how Sister Mary Clarence gets the group to function, I want to take a look at the flip side of that coin, how she helps the individuals to find their voice. Because as UUs, it is imperative that we actively find and keep a healthy balance between individuality and belonging to the group. Whether that's the larger group of the whole congregation or a smaller group of a committee or task force, or even the very small group sharing coffee and cake at a table on Sunday morning. Because while the convent works as a group of equals who address each other as sister, except for Reverend Mother, who's responsible for all of them, that group only works if the individuals are healthy too. So two short vignettes. The first is the night that Mary Robert, I keep wanting to make everyone a sister, but she's not there yet. The novice brings Sister Mary Clarence this really silly flower alarm clock. And so she's in Whoopi's room, her cell, since they're in a convent, and they have a conversation there. At which point, Sister Mary Clarence asks Mary Robert, "Did you always want to be a nun?" It turns out that she did. From the time she was very young, Mary Robert felt drawn to the convent. But then she shares with Sister Mary Clarence something we might not expect from a woman who always only wanted to be a nun. Mary Robert says, "It's like there's something inside me, only me and nobody else. Something special. I just have to do this special thing or I'll just burst." She admits to being lonely, to needing to be herself or die, and knows that she has to do this as a nun. Not because anyone is making her, but because that is who she is. Sister Mary Clarence agrees with her, even though we all know that Whoopi is no nun, but she knows what that's like. That's individuality, full blown. Mary Robert isn't there yet at this point in the story. She still has no voice, rather literally, when they're singing. But I want to be very clear that these characters are not without substance. They're not hiding out from personal growth and responsibility. Mary Robert clearly sees her life as including both fulfilling growth as her very own self and being deeply committed to her community. Mary Robert can't have one without the other. And in point of truth, few of us can. Many of us slip from one extreme to the other, slipping into individualism, where our single personal selves are everything to us. Or we slide in the other direction and mold ourselves according to group values that call for the sacrifice of our individuality. In our world today, social media is a groupthink phenomenon that is extraordinarily powerful. People, especially teenage people, have killed themselves because they were so overwhelmed by destructive group process. Unable to meet the group's judgments, they judged themselves as an individual, not worthy of living at all. So it's worth recognizing that despite the real need for human beings to learn to live in healthy, creative groups, that need can only be met by healthy, creative individuals. One of the many sub-stories of Sister Act is of Mary Robert recognizing her burning need to be an individual and then watching, or really listening, to her literally grow from having no voice at all and just mouthing the words, to singing an extended solo for the Pope. We don't need to be Roman Catholic to recognize the patriarchal power of that image. So to have the youngest nun, the novice, the woman with the least authority in the hierarchy, sing an extended solo in full voice is really just plain amazing. She and her sisters all had their own voices, their own music. Part of Sister Mary Clarence's genius as choir mistress was that they all had solo parts. In that last number in the movie, they sing with great exuberance and joy as a group, and every single woman on that stage has solo lines. Different ones, but still solos. And in the story, the Pope himself gives them a standing ovation. And honestly, I felt like giving them one too, at least metaphorically speaking, since it's a movie and not real life. And yes, I do know the difference. Stories are powerful. They show us how to do things we haven't dreamed of yet. They document our roots. They help us define ourselves and figure out how to work together. Now, I know that this story is not perfect, From a feminist perspective, we might script it a bit differently, although it does move things along when it comes to feminism. If you're watching closely, you'll realize that Whoopi's character, Sister Mary Clarence, who is really in witness protection, never addresses Reverend Mother as Reverend Mother. She always calls her sister. They are, in a very subtle way, equals from the start. From a criminal justice perspective, the story is a little bit of a joke, especially in this day and time, since the idea of using a computer to commit a crime is absolutely way too true and commonplace to even be noteworthy today. And we could have some interesting discussion about strategy and the difference between manipulation and genuinely facilitating growth if we had more time. And we are not a convent, but we are a small group of spiritually and philosophically minded people who are wildly different as individuals and who yearn for the power of healthy community. Sometimes we have it, other times we don't. Sometimes people go home hurting and unsure how to address their pain with the people who inflicted it. Other times we leave here with people grinning from ear to ear and hollering back and forth in the parking lot, really excited about an experience that we just shared. We need to learn how to heal the pain and grow through it. We could use more stories that show us ourselves writ large so that we can embed ourselves in the story and work out some of the issues that are too intense, too sensitive to do for real in person at a committee meeting. I mean, seriously. That's where most of us see each other a lot of the time. So if you've got a story that helps you with that, please email the title to me so that we can acquire a library that's bigger than just Sister Act. But in the meantime, I encourage us to take this story to heart and try to incorporate the process that these dysfunctional nuns used to build a great community. UUs have a goal of what we call becoming a beloved community. We'll learn more about that specifically another time. But for now, we need to be more than beloved. Beloved is a passive description. It describes others' attitude toward us. We need to learn to be a compassionate community for two reasons. First, it will take being compassionate to achieve the goals of being beloved. And second, compassion starts with each one of us. In fact, everything it takes to become a beloved community starts with compassion. And that's something that we can do for each other as individuals while we grow into a great beloved community. So if you haven't seen or watched Sister Act recently, I say go home and give it a whirl. Not because it won prestigious awards or because it's profound or deep, it's really not. But because it's fun and it'll make you laugh and show you some ways to balance yourself with your community. The thing is, science tells us that we remember what makes us laugh. So there is a method to my madness in saying, go watch this silly comedy from the early 90s. And by the time I've laid it out for you in the framework that I have, I guarantee you will be looking at it differently than you would have previous to this. And the other thing I want to say is, if you don't have access to it, and or if you're interested in watching the movie together in the social hall, complete with popcorn, and having a much more active discussion among ourselves than is possible here, I'm game for that. I don't own it myself, but I have a friend who does and who loaned it to me, and I'm holding it hostage. So we could definitely do something like that if you're interested in the near future. So check it out. Let me know what you'd like to do. And the very end of the movie, Whoopi's character is able to confront the man who has been committing all kinds of crimes, et cetera, and is a mob boss and this, that, and the other thing. And he's chasing her, trying to kill her, and it's very dramatic, and they've offered $250,000 for our beloved daughter, dead or alive, in an effort to try to get her back, with posters splashed up around town and all this kind of stuff. And you know, it's got a triumphant happy ending. The police officer takes a single shot, wounds the bad guy in the arm, so nobody's died. There's no unnecessary bloodshed, because the guy was holding a gun up to Whoopi, so you know, that's the end of that. So she's safe, the nuns are safe, the bad guy's being hauled off by the criminals, and Whoopi says, "I've got 2 words to say to you." And the sisters collectively gasp. And little Mary Robert says, "Sister Mary Clarence." And Whoopi's character turns to the criminal clown over here and she says, "Bless you." I'm telling you, anything that puts Whoopi Goldberg in a nun's habit is worth taking a look at. So that's my message for today. I'm aware that we're a bit past our allotted time. I don't even know what time we started. But I think if you want to skip the last hymn, yes, I'm getting an okay on that from Carol. So would somebody be willing to come and extinguish our chalice while we read the words for that? Dave? Okay. Thank you. And if the rest of us could stand as we're able. Let us read together. Our chalice flame is extinguished, yet continues to inspire us from within. May we move out into the world filled with the spirit of compassionate community, enacting our principles and fulfilling our ideals. Slava. May we support each other in growth and awareness as we seek to build a compassionate community among ourselves here. May we be self-aware, alert to our own process, sensitive, kind, and true to others. Always. Shalom.
Shalom.
Now if we could face each other across the aisle, we will sing Go Now in Peace, and then we can open that back hall door, which I had shut originally, to contain the heat, which frankly at this point is stifling. We can open the door and help yourselves to cake and coffee in the social hall. Dee and Lynn, I need you to come up here and weave your strip in, and then they will be able to join you. So, okay. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.